Welcome, everybody. Welcome in to the post game. Let me throw my post game banner up here real quick. Boom, there we go. Off of a Nebraska dub. I know it's a lot more fun when these are off of wins. So, had a fun watch party for the game. Little bit of a stressful watch party, but it was good that Nebraska controlled most of that game. But we're going to dive into a little bit of everything. Justin, what's going on? Appreciate you dropping in here. First, go Big Red. BA, I'm here to objectively state that Nebraska is better than Alabama. I will say the first person to make that claim was BA. He did that in the first quarter of the live watch party. So anybody else who's taking credit or trying to start the narrative that Nebraska is better than Bama, BA did it first, just so y'all know. So I'll give you your credit there. Don't worry. Like I said, I got your back. But yeah, a ugly but exciting win nonetheless. One of the biggest things for Nebraska was the one-score game, of course. I was talking with Big Ten Ted. He came on to my Big Ten show. Yeah, BA, absolutely, you can. He came on to my Big Ten show, Big Ten Ted did, and we kind of had a conversation that was very, very interesting. And the conversation was about, would Nebraska prefer this to be a one-score game, and kind of get that monkey off their back? And part of me was like, yeah, like in a way, of course it would be nice to win by multiple scores, and I'm never going to be upset about that. But the worst, getting that one-score game at home. But I think the biggest thing, it's not just the one-score game, it's about how this game transpired and the opportunities that Nebraska had to fold, and they hit back. And I think that's the testament to this team versus previous year's team. Was it perfect? No. The offense really struggled. Raiola struggled. It was just it was hard to get anything going consistently. But, the team overall, I think, battled back from adversity. Even the offense battled back from adversity. When they would make a mistake, Raiola throwing that interception, he came out and completed a couple of good passes to start the next drive. So I think the responses there are what I like to see more so. The execution stuff that can get cleaned up on film, but more so, I think it's just seeing Nebraska have the opportunity to get punched in the mouth and finally punch back against a team that usually just punches and punches to the body, takes the body blows until they knock you out, like Rutgers, right? But Nebraska was that team today, and it seemed like Rutgers was the team that turned into the team making the critical errors and mistakes that led to them losing the game. So, yeah, like I said, overall, just a very good, let's see, what's up, Jackson? A couple comments going here. Be so glad when election season's over, as political it being said, Nebraska is defined. Yeah, I agree with you. Literally every ad's political. It's like local politicians. It's the presidency stuff. I am over it. I am completely over it. Nebraska needs to find an identity on offense. We could lose. So that, yeah. And I think you probably remember me talking about this against Illinois, like that being my issue with the offense, not necessarily the play calling, more so the identity. I think in this game, there was, the run game was going there a little bit, but the passing game wasn't there. And the passing game needs to be there to kind of help set up the run game as well. With Rutgers, they're a team that's going to, they don't have a lot of team speed, which surprised me, that Nebraska was not able to get some guys kind of in space and stuff like that. But they are a team that brings a lot of hats to the ball. They are a very well-coached team defensively, but I'll dive into some of that stuff here. Let me go ahead, and I'm going to pull up kind of what were my keys to the game going into this. And pretty much everything I said we needed to do to win this game, we did. And of course, the main one that, of course, I didn't point out is always going to be, turnovers. Turnovers, of course, right? Like we want to win the turnover margin. And I said that was important in this game naturally. But I think the biggest thing, and let me find my notes here for y'all. There we go. So here are my keys to the game going into this game. And so get to an early lead by halftime, keep it, force them to try to win the game with Callie McManus's arm. That's what we did, right? And I said it needed to be multiple scores, because when you're in a one-score game, they can still effectively run their balanced offense. When you have a multiple score lead and that clock is starting to tick a little more, but there's also an urgency to put points on the board because they know Nebraska's offense, while it was struggling today, can do that. You saw they had to put the game on Callie Manis's back for the majority of it, and he's just not very good at throwing the football. He was able to hit that, that ball down the sideline, pretty deep down the sideline, but it was after he missed about 5 easy throws and some out routes. So like he's occasionally going to have a good throw here and there, but when you force him to using his arm and strictly that, he's not a quarterback that's going to beat you. He's a perfect quarterback for what Rutgers wants to do when it's working. But yeah, we saw today just kind of how that looks. Shout out to the defense, of course. And then my second goal there was to win on third down. When it came to third down last week against Washington, I pointed out that over the previous 2 weeks for Rutgers against Virginia Tech and Washington, they were a combined 7 for 24 on third down against Rutgers. And Rutgers went 7 of 17 or 7 of 15, something like that against Washington. So, Washington had the advantage in basically every category statistically, yards, yards per play, the whole nine, but Rutgers beat them on third down and they got off the field defensively on third down and they won the game. And then special teams also, Washington, of course, make the field goal. We had the special teams lapses today, couple of punts getting blocked, but I'm going to talk about that one where we kind of had that goal line stand where Nebraska remains the only team in college football without giving up a rushing touchdown. So what's up, Brian? Appreciate you hopping in here. And if y'all don't mind dropping a like on the stream, it really helps me out. I really, really appreciate it. And if y'all pile in here, just drop your thoughts. Let me know what you think here for the algorithm. Hey, appreciate you, Fong Wei. Huskers go through good spurts and bad spurts. Special teams still special. They are special. That is for sure. For a second there, I thought Satterfield took over the punt game on that fake punt, and then Foley took over the offense because, yeah, the execution was terrible. But that's the thing about this team. Like, I think in previous years, the defense would have played lights out and the offense would have lost them the game. I think the one thing that we got to point to in this game and realize that we're still taking these steps, right, is the offense didn't lose Nebraska this game. The offense didn't lose us the game. That is a step. Last year, the offense would have lost us this game. They would have turned the ball over. They would have done something stupid. Nebraska, we were going on 3 and outs and stuff like that, but protecting the football for the most part outside of that one play where it was almost like he was baited by that linebacker. Just didn't see that linebacker sitting there, his first freshman mistake of the season. So appreciate you hopping in here, Fong Wei. Jackson, appreciate it. Let's get Nebraska Voice of College Football to 6,000 subs. Let's do it. Appreciate you, Jackson. And appreciate you still being here, even though your boys lost. Your boys lost. The Bama goes down to Vandy. So I'm sorry, Jackson. I hate that for you, buddy. But shout out to Vandy, though. Hell of a way to put it with Sat and Foley. Yeah, it felt like that for a second. We went from Fire Foley to him Bushini throwing that pass, and I was like, okay, well, we might be onto something here. All right. So let's get into a little bit of what Matt Rule had to say in the post game. Now, one thing that BA talked about on the stream, and we had mentioned early on that stream, was Tony White and kind of shifting to 4 hands in the dirt, across the line and not being in that typical 3-3-5 look where you have the jack off the edge. So he said they had 3 down with 2 jacks and a 3-2 personnel, right? And so that way you can get a little bit more of a run stop look in there. The 3-3-5 again is very susceptible. In the run game with the stunts and stuff like that, you have to get very creative and stuff like that. They're especially susceptible on the edges. So great adjustment there by Tony White. Just shows how well coached this defense is overall. And, I know a lot of people were questioning the defense off of that Illinois game. And I tried to tell people that, like, understand what happened defensively against Illinois was a lot of what Illinois did to put Nebraska's defense out of position. Right. And I think, because a lot of people were questioning the defense after that. And I think now we're starting to see that, right? What Rutgers wanted to do. And this is why I think now the Illinois game was such a good game to have on film. I think that game prepped us for this game. I think if we come out and dominate Illinois in that game and don't have the film from that game that we did, This game's a lot tougher, but you saw the adjustments we made. Rutgers, Kirk Shiroka, their offensive coordinator, Kirk Shiroka's a guy who's going to, again, attack the advantageous situations, right? He's a coach that coaches to his strengths, his team's strengths, and he's very good at that. And what you saw from his offense this season so far, right? And just in general, his offenses in general, he likes to, get that run game going, of course. And I use the example of the outside zone and what I saw in some of their film, right? So we'll run that outside zone and they'll run it over and over and over. And then they're going to set up RPOs, run pass options, and run action passes, which are two different things off of those, right? But everything's going to look, the RPOs for the outside zone, everything's going to look identical. It's going to look the exact same to the outside zone, blocking and everything. So what it does is you really have to keep your eyes, it challenges your eyes, because if they're doing everything the same, which is hard to do, right? Some players are going to give tells, but if they're doing everything the exact same way as it is with outside zone, but they're doing an RPO, right? Then all of a sudden, you lose your eyes, you lose your man, they're passing it over your head. And what I did see in a couple times, especially in the first half, so whenever they would run a few of those looks and Nebraska would be anticipating the outside zone, um, to the short side of the field where they were anticipating, and I gotta go back and look at all the film to make sure this was the consistent short side of the field, but at least when I noticed it was a short side of the field, and it was basically would press man on that receiver that we thought was going to be the key off of that run pass option. So they would press man over there, and they had off coverage on the opposite side. And like I said, I'll have to go back and look at the film to see the specifics. But you know, I really think in a lot of those situations, they put Calic Manis in a much tougher situation than he is against Washington. He was able to have, pretty good amount of wide open looks. And I think that's what this offense has typically got him to do is be able to get some guys open and get some wide open looks. But you saw today he was having to create and make plays. Like he was having to try to throw off platform throws, and he's just not capable of doing it. There at the end of the game where Nebraska was kind of, you know, just basically trying to, keep them from scoring a touchdown. He was just kind of ripping that ball and trying to put everything he had into it. But, was dirting it a lot. He had that one completion on that fourth down where I feel like he just kind of zoomed that in there as fast as he could and hope best. He did a couple times throughout that drive, but he just doesn't have the ability to kind of sit back in the pocket, go through his progressions and do those things. So once Nebraska took the run game out of the equation, Calic Manis was an uphill battle for him. Don't want to think where they'd be without Dylan. Me neither. Neither do I. It'd be a lot like last year. But Nebraska, Indiana 2 weeks from now could either be big noon kickoff. For what it's worth, Indiana struggled mightily today with Northwestern. Northwestern had them in a dogfight. And one of the things I've said about Indiana this entire year and on my Big Ten show, I've been asking this question. Indiana is a team full of James Madison transfers, right? Kirk Cignetti came over, brought JMU transfers over. My thing about Indiana is they've had an explosive offense, right? But they haven't been physical. Like they haven't had to be physical. And they get a game against Northwestern, who's a scrappy team, but not a good team. And they get themselves in a little bit of a dogfight. That is my thing on Indiana. I know everybody's singing Indiana praises, and I get it, right? Like they are a great story, great team. What he's done there is nothing short of incredible. But I'm just talking about in comparison to what it's going to look like versus the Nebraska game. I honestly thought this Rutgers game was going to be tougher than that Indiana game. I think Illinois is a tougher matchup for Nebraska than Indiana. I could be wrong, but we just haven't seen them in a real physical battle yet. And that I want to see. I want to see them in a physical battle and see if they can withstand that physicality, being a bunch of James Madison transfers and being Indiana in their, kind of first little year of their turnaround here. So yeah, I mean, all credit to them. Again, Kurt's work's doing unreal. Kirk Cignetti's been phenomenal everywhere he's been as a coach. It's just the physicality question. And it's not that I'm saying they can't do it. It's just they haven't had to yet. And again, today, against the one scrappy opponent they played, Northwestern, little fight. The second half offense was hot garbage. 5-1 going to the bye week. Amazing it is. Offense was hot garbage all day. Yeah, the offensive execution wasn't there, and you know I think this is one of those games where I think Satterfield's going to get a lot of heat, but I don't necessarily put this on Satterfield. It just happened to be a day where the passing game wasn't executing, and that really hurt the offense as a whole because that hurt the run game, vice versa. Rutgers is one of those teams that you really have to kind of spread them out and take advantage of their lack of speed. But if you allow them to kind of stay in the box and keep them in there, then it's going to be rough sledding. But credit to Nebraska. I'm glad we still kind of tried to go to the run as much as we did. But and then the big play call, the Janiron Bonner wing trap touchdown there, beautiful play call. Like there's some great play calls in moments. But yeah, that was an excellent play call. Love that. Love seeing that. Love seeing Janiron Bonner get in there and get that touchdown. But let's talk a little bit more about let me go into some of these game notes here or some of these notes that Matt Rule had talked about. So we talked about the 3rd and 4th down stops being a key. Said our defense practiced harder this week than they have in probably 2 years here. And that, to me, right, like we talk about all the time how Scott Frost was always talking about practice this, practice that. We show up on the field and it'd be a little bit different. But I think there's a little bit of a difference here because you have one coach where they go in and they practice, a certain way to a certain standard. And then you have Matt Rule's practice and his standard, right? And he has a much higher standard for this team, even in their practices, right? And I think we're starting to see points where it's like, okay, like a good week of preparation now finally equals a good week on the field, right? That wasn't the case before, and a lot of us were wondering why. I just think it's attention to detail, and I think it's a lack of really kind of standard before. And now he sees that the defense playing their best they have, or practicing the best they have in his time here, and he said it was one of the best defensive performances he's ever seen. James Williams, I said this a little bit like before even the game ended. I was like, James Williams is going to be the unsung hero of this game. And luckily, I'm glad he came out and did what he did at the end of the game to be wildly recognized for what he did today. Because I was watching his individual battles and some of those plays. I mean, there was one play there against Calic Manis on that 3rd down where it got him to a 4th and 4 where James Williams kind of got Calic Manis from behind. But I was watching that whole battle up top during that play. And I mean, he kind of got around the edge, right? And then Calic Manis stepped up in the pocket to run. And he's already trying to go around that edge. And then he just turns around and beats the defender to the inside after the defender had inside positioning and is still able to get up, reach out, and tackle Calic Manis. That, to me, that right there was like, that play embodies James Williams, right? Like that is just, he is fighting, gritting, clawing his way to make any play he can to help this team. And I'm super happy that he was able to close the game the way he did and be able to put Nebraska in a situation to win that game and get the credit he did. Today was like a Bears Steelers game from the 70s. Rather win ugly than lose ugly. That's the motto. So he said big plays were often results of missed tackles. Another thing too, like I was surprised we couldn't break more tackles against Rutgers just because Rutgers had 14 tackles missed last week from 11 different players. So there was a little bit of I was expecting us to be able to make guys miss a little bit more, but again, couldn't really get anything going. What else did he say? When you have some adversity, it's an opportunity to rise up and do something special. So I talked earlier in the game, or earlier in this stream, about kind of where this team is right now and how I see this win. And again, I see it as this: the offense wasn't up to par, but we won, right? And we Nebraska'd a few times in this game, and there were times where I know we were all thinking, here it goes, right? But the here it goes moment never kind of fully came to fruition, right? And looking back, it's like, yeah, like there's nitpicky things, but like that's a game that Nebraska would have folded in years prior. And I think the biggest point there and the biggest key there was that blocked punt where, they block the punt, they run it back to the 1.5 yard line. I think previously, I think Nebraska teams might have, not saying they would have quit, but like they wouldn't, I don't think they would have come out immediately on the field and responded like that. Right. But to come out against a team who has Kyle Monangai and, they Samuel Brown is no slouch at running back either. Samuel Brown has looked good this year. They're back, their second string running back. And you have a big body guy like Kalik Manis from the 1 yard line, and they have 5 plays to punch it in, and they get nothing. They lose yards, right? That to me right there was the first step in the right direction. Show me this team has really, really turned that corner. Previous Nebraska teams would have given that touchdown up, and then we would have had our backs against the wall while being up 14-7, but it's scary hours, right? Now, how big in hindsight is Nebraska going in and stopping them at the goal line there? It becomes that even much more massive, because then you have an opportunity there with that second touchdown. That's a tie game, right? That's everything right there. And that was after the penalty. So it was one of those instances where it's like, okay, a penalty followed by, Nebraska, Bushini gets a punt off, you get a penalty that brings it back, and of course it gets blocked, right? That whole sequence was something we've seen time and time again, but y'all can't tell me you didn't think in that moment that Nebraska was potentially, that was the moment, right? That was the moment where Nebraska is going to look back and regret, like this was the moment the game changed. It reminded me a little bit of that Iowa game when I think Smothers was the starting quarterback. Nebraska was up 3 scores, and I think we punted off of the up man's back, and Iowa ran it in for a touchdown, and they got all the momentum back after that, right? It reminded me a little bit of that. It's like you have all the momentum, and like it's like if you get this punt off, right, you're still okay. But they block it, run it back. Luckily, heads up play there to chase that, not let them get in the end zone, and then just the response by the defense, incredible. A couple of calls were, the holding around Banks's hip, the holding call in the back of the end zone. I thought on that holding call where they got us in the end zone, I saw on camera full speed or in the replay even, where that defender or that offensive receiver put his helmet into the face mask of our defensive back there, and he had to hold on. I can't remember who was in coverage there, but he kind of grabbed on after that, and they called holding. And I think that's what Matt Rule was arguing a little bit later after that was over, was because I saw that too, and I was talking about that. BA can attest to this. But like he grabbed on because I think he was just surprised when he got a helmet to helmet and kind of grabbed on there. So I get it, but like I think overall, I don't think the calls were terrible. Just a few would like to have back, but I think overall the execution in terms of the penalties goes was better than we've seen this year. So that's a good thing. I'm going to dive into a little bit of the box score here, the full team stats, so I can get you an idea. So I got it all written down here. So let me see here. So we got first downs, 18 Rutgers, 15 Nebraska. So all right, here's the kicker, right? Third down efficiency, 2 for 14 Rutgers, right? So only converted 2 out of 14. Nebraska was 7 for 19. Say what you will about the offense. They did convert some timely third downs and 3 for 3 on fourth down. Okay. Then you come over the total yards. Rutgers actually outgained Nebraska, right? This is the opposite of what we had last year. In previous years, Nebraska was a box score winning team, right? But not a scoreboard winning team. We did not win the box score in this game, but we won the game. So which team do you want to be? Passing 164 for us, 186 for Rutgers. To be fair, they were passing a lot, 37 attempts, 15 completions. Nebraska had 14 completions on 28 attempts. So 6 yards per pass for Nebraska, 5 yards per pass for Rutgers, but those 2 turnovers for Rutgers, 2 interceptions, and 1 for Nebraska. So Nebraska wins the turnover margin, wins the third down battle, wins the fourth down battle. Rushing 78 yards for Rutgers, 97 for Nebraska. Rushing attempts for Rutgers, 32, 2.4 yards per rush. Penalties right here, 4 for 28 for Rutgers, 7 for 37 for Nebraska. I think that's the biggest thing. You see the yardage, man, 37 yards. Coming in out of Purdue game last week, we had nearly 100 yards total and penalties, and Nebraska was coming in to this game, I think, as the second most penalized team in the Big Ten. Rutgers, the second least penalized team in the Big Ten behind Iowa. So time of possession goes Nebraska at 31 minutes to 28 minutes. So again, Nebraska winning where it matters in the box score, winning the turnover margin, winning on third down. Moving over, looking at Kyle Monungai's day, because he was a key guy we were looking at, of course. 19 carries, 78 yards, 17-yard long. Good job of keeping him at bay. I think keeping him at bay is what also kept the pass game from Rutgers not get going, but also at the same time, us forcing them to have to play from behind and throw the ball kept Kyle Monungai from getting going. So those two things play off of each other. But that is a big reason why we were able to keep Kyle Monungai at bay and hold him to 78 yards, 19 carries. He was averaging 4.1 per carry to 17-yard long. But Samuel Brown getting in there for 3 carries and 12 yards. Look across at the wide receiver core here. So they spread it out pretty well. Ben Black, KJ Duff, Dymere Miller, Chris Long, Kyle Monungai, and Kenny Fletcher all had between 2 or 3 receptions. But yeah, Ben Black had that big touchdown drop there on the sideline where he tried to catch it with his face for a second. How big is that one too, right? Like the mental errors that Rutgers made. That's not typical Rutgers mistakes. Looking over at the Nebraska, let's go to Nebraska's here. So Raiola 13 for 27, 134 yards, 5 average, no touchdowns, 1 interception, a 10.8 QBR, right? Not great. But Buschini comes out 1 for 1, 30-yard pass and 100 QBR. Love to see it. Buschini battled, man. He deserves so much credit, man. He battled his tail off through that, and I didn't have the sound on because I was on a live watch party. Was I losing my mind thinking that was a roughing the punter? I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have the sound on, so I wasn't hearing what the commentators were saying. But should that not have been a roughing the punter? Dante Dowd, 14 carries, 57 yards, 4-point average. You can drop in the comments. Let me know for sure. 4.1 yard average, which is the same as Kyle Monungai. Ramir, 5 carries, 34 yards, 6.8 average, 18-yard long. Emmett Johnson, 14 carries, 33 yards, and 9-yard long. Janiron Bonner, of course, getting his 1 carry for a touchdown. Jalen Lloyd, 2 receptions for 44 yards. Ramir Johnson, 3 for 40. Jamal Banks, 1 for 31. And then we had Ja'Cory Barney with 3, Fedoni with 3. Fedoni almost getting a touchdown there. Emmett Johnson, 1 for 7. And then Dowdle with 1. So we had Gifford coming in with a 1.5 TFLs. Gifford had a really good game. That pass deflection, that pass breakup that he had, getting his hand in there, that was huge. And James Williams finished with 5 total tackles, 4 solo tackles, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. Absolutely incredible game for him. And if you haven't saw it on Twitter earlier, kind of what he said in the post game, and if I can find that, I'll play it for you. But if I can find that, I'll play it for you. But very emotional in the post game press conference, just talking about on that play, how Jamari set him up, to be able to get through the middle on his sack, and how Pot Roast has been just believing in him and helping him. Terrence Knighton, of course, believing in him and helping him through this, and he was just emotional, teared up at the end of the game for all he's battled through. James Williams is just a grinder, and I think I did a video after he was talking on the podium this offseason, and just the manner at which he spoke and just kind of the maturity level he showed when he was at the podium and talking about his growth and development and how much he understood about his body. He was talking about things like him needing to, you know, be a lot more conscious of his nutrition and recovery because he's not, he's 6'6", 250, but he's not a big, bulky, stocky guy, right? Like he's a long, leaner guy. So he's talking about like how when he's in the trenches, it's a little bit harder for a guy like him to take all that punishment and be able to get your body back and right for the next week. Well, whatever he's figured out in this offseason till now is working because he has been an unsung hero, in and out this season. Like he's just been really, really good off the edge all season. And I think that just goes to show how much of a developmental program that Nebraska now has. And also, with the recovery, with the nutrition that they're doing, like there's things that are pointing to that being a direct result of some of this stuff. And like I said, he was mentioning how important that was this offseason. Just making sure his body was ready for each and every week so he can come out there and put 100% effort out there every single week like he did this week. Joe Schmo, you can say it. The curse is broken. Can I? I'm afraid to say it, but I did say in that game, I will tell you this. BA said he was scared. I said, I'm not scared. Not worried about it. And we won. So curse is broken. All right. Y'all can bookmark this for if you want to go back. If it's not, you can come back and say I did it. So keep dropping your comments in here. Let me know your thoughts on the game. Another thing too, Javen Wright, good to see him get out there. 4 tackles, 2 solo tackles for him. Sierra Wright, incredible this game. Another guy, four tackles, 2 solos. How big has he been this season, man? 2 fast deflections. He just has this unreal knack for the ball. Like his ball skills are so good. Like he's got receiver level ball skills. The way he's able to identify and break on routes and be able to come back and break, like we saw it a couple times in that early season scrimmage right before the season started, where they had open for the crowd and stuff like that. It was very evident there too. Like just some of those plays he made to get back on balls and break them up, and then of course over the course of the season has me wondering if kind of like if that's why with Bly Hill, they're being a little bit more conservative and maybe in an attempt to see if maybe they can survive with the defensive back room they have right now and maybe redshirt Bly. I don't know. I don't know if Bly, I don't think Bly was redshirted before, but he's a sophomore. So keep him, kind of fresh a little bit, or they're just being conservative with his injury and just making sure he doesn't come back and injure himself, and they're going to get him back when he's fully healthy. John Bullock, four tackles, 2 solos. Can't say enough good things about John Bullock. He has been incredible all season for Nebraska. Nash and Ty got in there on very, very timely plays. They didn't do a whole bunch on the stat sheet, but very, very timely plays. Those plays that they did make, those sacks that they had. Each one of them had a sack, and boy, were they big. Nash fighting through, or Ty fighting through holds to get to his. Nash was just basically out bullied the guy that was blocking him. He just basically grinded to the quarterback because he moved the guy to the right, but credit to him, he stayed with him and he was blocking, but just Nash is relentless, man, and he just got around there, got to the quarterback. So 2 TFLs for Ty, 1 for Nash. Got, let's see, outside of that, we had a couple of coverage lapses there in the first quarter. Or in the second half, I'm sorry, couple coverage lapses there in the second half that we'll see. That's where I start to get a little worried is, on that defensive side of the ball, on the defensive back side of the ball, like there's definitely opportunities there, and Rutgers didn't take advantage of those today. Now, that's what I'm a little worried about when we do face a team that can take advantage of a couple of those coverage things, but we'll see what happens. Bly Hill, we'll see who goes, Hartzog or Buford, or if Bly, when Bly comes back, they're going to continue with the same starters they got out there. But I'm really, really curious to see if anybody's going to ask about Bly Hill coming off of this week. All right, let me sorry, let me remove over here. One second. Where is this at? Sorry, I was trying to look for a note I had here. All right, for 1 second though, oh yeah, can anybody tell me if that hit on Bushini was clean or not? If it was a roughing the punter, or what should it have been or not? Um, Now looking again, let me go to I'm trying to find Indiana's game here. So Nebraska's of course going to come out of a bye week, and then we go into Indiana. I was talking about Indiana today, their game against Northwestern. And when looking kind of through, let me see schedule here. When looking at the game against Indiana, so Indiana against Northwestern today, because we were kind of following along that game in our live stream as well. Now that was blow for blow with Indiana. The scoreboard's 41-24. That game was much closer than that scoreboard indicates. Indiana kind of went up late, put a couple scores up late but this was, for all intents and purposes, a one-score game through most of the game. And Rourke came out 25-33, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jack Lausch, 23-38, 243, right? But the thing about this game was that Indiana was being very explosive, and Northwestern was just responding and putting together drives, being efficient. And so this is part of what I was talking about when I had questions coming into this week about Indiana were, does Indiana have the ability to kind of slow it down and really kind of impose their will on a team, right? I don't know if they do yet. Justice Ellison, 14 carries for 68 yards. So they had 35 carries for 149 yards total, but threw the ball 33 times for 380 yards, right? And so let's go to the team stats here. Third down, 3 for 9, right? So you see there, it's 3 for 9. They had 9 third downs, and good offense, right? They're explosive offense. They're going to get chunk plays on you. But you come over to Northwestern, 5 for 13. Fourth down efficiency, 2 for 3, 1 for 3, 529 yards of offense to 336. Penalties, they're pretty good in the penalty department, 3 for 22, 3 for 24 Northwestern. But this was just a matter of Indiana having more talent than Northwestern. That was what it's about. Northwestern fought and clawed to the very end of this game. And if you look at the play-by-play, so it was 7-0 Indiana, and then it was 7-7, 14-7 Indiana, and then 14-10. So 14-10 at halftime. Then Northwestern punts, and then Indiana goes up 24-10, but then Northwestern responds 24-17. Field goal by Indiana, 27-17. Touchdown by Northwestern, 27-24. And that is in the fourth quarter, right? So 34, and then Indiana comes down, scores a touchdown, 34-24. Then Northwestern kind of on their second to last drive, turnover on downs, because of course they have to score a touchdown. And then Indiana scores a touchdown, then Northwestern turnover on downs. So Northwestern fought and battled in that game. So I think there's a few things that I think Nebraska can do coming into this Indiana week. And the biggest thing, of course, is that we're going to have to do is limit the explosive plays. Naturally, they are an explosive offense, but I think our defense does a very good job of limiting explosive plays. And another thing to that is this is hard coming off of this week, but if Nebraska's offense can figure a game plan out to sustain drives, keep Indiana's offense off the field as much as possible, I would venture to guess that Nebraska's offense is okay, right? Like Nebraska's offense has been good and bad this season, but it's been a lot of good, right? I think that Nebraska has a good enough team to be able to sustain drives against Indiana, just because I think they're the more physical team. So, FPI has given us a 29% chance to win, but I don't necessarily know. That could be a ranked matchup coming into that game. Indiana's, of course, ranked 23rd. But yeah, I'll get to my breakdown on that as the week goes along. But just wanted to kind of give you all some little intel in case you missed it about the Northwestern Indiana game and just kind of what's going on there, because they do a good job of spreading the ball out, but just it doesn't seem like they slow it down a lot. Doesn't seem like they have the ability to slow it down a lot. It seems like they want to score and score quickly. So we'll see how that goes. But got them coming up next week. More on formation, maybe. I think the biggest thing is just like kind of what we did today, though. I do like that we tried to go the run game. Um, but yeah, like just do what Marcus Satterfield likes to do: get big, get heavy, 12 personnel. Get in two tight end sets, and you know, run some of those trap. Like we did against Colorado. Run some of those trap plays. Run. Just get a little bit creative in the running department, and let your pass game work off of that. Because I think Indiana is just one of those teams that we're probably need to wear down, and we're going to have to sustain drives against. So we're really going to have to figure out a game plan of like just keep it simple though. That's the thing. Like this doesn't have to be too complicated, right? Go in there with a game plan of execution of like, you know, similar to what Rutgers does. When they win, is they keep their game plan simple. What Kirk Soroka does on that offense, he preaches three things: ball, which is ball security; execution, which is basically just alignment, assignment, and technique, being where you need to be in your alignment, being where you need to be on the field for your assignment, and technique is just sticking to what you know, and violence, right? So he says for violence, you're either engaged in a block, you're chasing the play, or you're leading the play, right? So there's a few elements there, but it's a very simple system, right? And as like, everything just runs off of that run action pass RPO. And I think if Nebraska can even just simplify this a little bit against Indiana, right? Just bring it down. Just don't have to do too much. Just try to simplify it a little bit. Have all that stuff in the bank. But I think if we need to come out and simplify it from the start and just get in a rhythm. And I think that was the problem. I think once Nebraska's offense fell out of a rhythm, it was very, very hard to get back into one. And I'm not sure what's the case, but Raiola was taking a lot of hits. And I saw something on X earlier from somebody who was at the game who said that, Raiola got up gingerly after a few of those hits. And when I predicted the Rutgers being the first loss of the season for Nebraska in this offseason, the reason why I did that was because I was like, I was wanting to see how Raiola responded to the first most physical test he had, what I thought was going to be the most physical test he had in Rutgers. Now, Illinois turned out to be a very physical test as well. But see how he does when he gets some hits. He starts really kind of feeling the heat, and this game will make him better. And I think it's the biggest thing that we need to take away from this. Like he got beat up a bit today, and but the thing, like I talked about before, he didn't lose us the game, right? The throws when he was off, he led the receiver, right? That one play where he threw the interception, he didn't see that linebacker lurking right there, right? That was a freshman mistake. But outside of that, on the other throws, when he was kind of feeling the pressure, when the offense was struggling to get going, like he would put it out in front of his receiver, but wouldn't put it in a place where the defender could get it, right? So they weren't terrible misses. It was just terrible in the sense that the offense could never get going and could never find any kind of efficiency. That's going to be what the key is going forward, is efficiency over flash, right? Come out and just get in a rhythm, right? Just bring everything to a simple, basic standard, get a couple first downs, and then open it up from there. I don't know if like the one long drive that Nebraska had, you remember that little, so it was like this kind of fake end around and flipped it back to Ramir for the screen to get us in the red zone. Like the play calling in that drive was excellent. Like plays like that, it was a long developing play, but it was executed very well. Like those are the things that you can mix off of it when you're kind of, just methodically driving around, keeping everything simple, just doing what you can, taking what the defense gives you, and then setting up plays like that, and then kind of breaking those out like little change up. What Illinois did to beat Nebraska, they didn't do anything too complex, right? But what they did was when they brought 85 in the backfield, right? They motion him across, 85 would be off the line for most of that game. They would motion him across, and from there they would do something off of that. Now, whether it be sneak him out for a pass or have him chip block, sneak out for a pass, or just run the ball and have him block, it kept Nebraska's defense on their heels. And as you saw as the game went on, you saw that 85 caught that wide open touchdown in the back of the end zone. Well, that was set up a few plays prior because he was on that right side of the formation, and He was blocking on one play. He ran out of a pass on one, didn't catch it, it was thrown to somebody else, and he ran out of a pass on another one. This is the 6 plays leading up to that touchdown, but that play was called back to a penalty. Like, they were setting that up, but they were keeping it simple, right? And I think Nebraska can introduce some of those just simplified concepts and just kind of have a little bit more diverse things off of it, but just do something to get them on their heels a little bit and just kind of from there, just exploit those little holes in the defense. And I think that's what Bielema did that gave Nebraska problems. He had our eyes out of position. He had our players out of position. Like that one play, there was a couple of RPOs that if John Bullock's a step to the left against Illinois, like he's there, right? But they had him a little bit inside because they had him cheating to the run, and also he was covering down for other people who weren't necessarily in their assignments and stuff like that. And that's what Nebraska, that's how Nebraska was on their heels. So we don't have to do too terribly much. Keep it simple, come out, execute, but have a game plan. And I think that's the biggest thing is this offense finding and keeping its identity and game planning to that and sticking with that, and then just build off of that, right? Just keeping those same formations, but build off of that. I think sometimes we're trying to do a little too much, and we're afraid to go back and simplify. But again, a lot of this stuff I'll be able to point out on the film. When I get the film from this game, I will definitely be dropping that this week for y'all. So that way you can get an idea of what I saw from this game. And also I'll break down some of Indiana's film as well. I do have access to the all 22s for every game, or most every game. So I'll be doing full film breakdowns on those, and that'll kind of game plan us into, see what we got going into the bye week, and then what we're going to have coming into the Indiana games this coming week. So got a lot of fun stuff for y'all. Yep. Trap just seems like Sat is married to pro style, multiple personnel. Yeah. He's married to huddling too. He's a big huddle guy. It was a hell of a play call listen, this is why I'm not going to jump on Satterfield, because he does have good playing call. And I just think today was an execution mishap, lapse. Let's give him the bye week. Indiana game, if they come out and if they have these execution issues off of our bye week, then we are in a little bit more of trouble, because that schedule coming up, I know we have UCLA in there. Wisconsin looked okay today. Good today. They look good today, but they haven't looked good all season. But we'll see. And you have Ohio State, of course, USC, who is in a little bit of a dogfight with Minnesota, and but Ohio State, like Indiana, and then Ohio State. So this has to be this week of preparation leading into the Indiana game, and it has to be perfect. And they have to execute against Indiana. Can't go into Ohio State with any question marks about the execution, or it's going to be a long day in Columbus. But all right, if there's no more comments in here, that'll do it for me today. I apologize for the late live stream. Again, I pushed this back, just trying to feel it out, because there's other post games that go on right after the game. I might move mine back to right after the game. So if I do that, then I'll let y'all know. Of course, follow me on X at @the_HTownHusker if you want to be notified of everything I got going on. See posts from me or when I got videos coming out. And again, thank you to everybody who constantly jumps in here with me, enjoys the game, enjoys the post game with me. I appreciate every single one of you, and to everybody who likes, comments on my videos. Honestly, couldn't do this without y'all. So thank you so much for everybody who supports me and supports this channel. I appreciate y'all more than you know. And yeah, that'll do it for me here. I'm going to hop off and go check out some of these games, hang out with the wifey. But again, Nebraska's 5-1. I got a lot of good stuff coming up for y'all next week. That'll get y'all ready for the Indiana game, and a good week of breakdowns coming. I was pretty much nailed it with the Rutgers breakdown, so stay tuned for the Indiana breakdown to see if I can do it 2 weeks in a row. So, but with that being said, I will see you on the next video. Peace.